Okay, so just briefly before we move on, I'm going to select these blend colours and just rename them. So BC underscore, and this is going to be the upper body underscore chest. So it's the upper body, so it's for the upper body, but the thing it's going to be following is the chest. So I'm going to put chest follow. And actually I'm going to put BC upper body chest follow trans for translate. Paste it in again. Instead of trans, we're going to put rotate, or rot for rotate. And I'll just copy the name for the plus minus average node. So I'm just going to put PMA and then paste the name, but just remove this PMA, remove this blend colour at the start. And do the same in the next one. PMA. And again, the reason for doing this is we can add as many follows as we want, just keep adding them on, and it's going to add that nice smooth blend that we get from one to the other. So I can move this up, can rotate this about, and then I can smoothly blend back to a different follow. So this is going to follow the world. If we use parent constraints, usually what it tends to do is just snap straight away, and we're not going to get that smooth in between. And you can use constraints, which is quite good. You can have that snap and then snap it back to the original pose you had before, but I prefer always to have both methods. I can use the control in here to smooth blend and get that smooth blend, and then I can use the mel script that I'm going to develop later, which we can click a button. So the same with the arms, we have that IKFK control down here to smooth blend between the two if you want to, and then we have the mel script later on, which is going to drive that as well. So just give him both options. But if you don't like this method, you can use the parent constraint and then just have a mel script that sets it to a different weight and then snaps the control back to its original position. So it queries its position, changes the parent constraint which is going to move it, and then you can just have a mel script that resets it to where it was queried before. Okay, so I'm going to set these back to 0 and we'll close. So I'll just select these and go graph, remove selected from graph. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is just hit Control D on this tie control, expand it and just delete that constraint, invert snap it to the middle here. And these tie controls, once we're done with them, we can just add them to the extra nodes to hide. Okay, so this is going to be the tie. I'll just copy the name actually. So this is going to be the tie underscore left antenna mid 01. And I'm just going to duplicate this actually. First snap it to the other side. Which is going to be the right side. So what we're actually going to do here as well is freeze the transforms on these. And for the most part, these controls, they're not really going to be grabbed by anything. There might be a special case where someone might grab these and jiggle them about again, but for the most case they're either going to be following these two controls, so averaging the position, or we want them to stay on their own so we can move them manually or have them in a static pose so that they're stuck to something. So what we're going to do here is actually select the top and bottom control. So I'm going to make sure I've froze the transforms on these. So I'm going to select the top, select the bottom, or the bottom and the top, and then shift select the tie control and just go to constraint. I'm just going to go point and leave the defaults on. and then do the same on this side. Select the top and bottom, shift select the tie and hit G to repeat the point. And selecting two things and then the last thing means it's going to add both of these as a point constraint. And we can see we've got two weight values in here, and what this means is it's going to stick in the middle of these two. So you can see how it's just sticking, always going to stay in the middle. Okay, so now what we can do is, with these groups, I'm going to group them again, center the pivot, which I'm just going to actually press insert and vert snap because it should be on the same vertice, the same joint, so it's the same pivot as the control. I'm going to get the next rotate offset group, hit Control G, and again just center the pivot so I can see the pivot, and then insert and vert snap. And I'll copy the names across, and this is going to be, instead of the rotate offset, it's going to be just the follow. Okay, so we've got them set up now. Got them in a nice, clean, tidy groups with their translates free. And what I'm going to do here is just add them to the graph. So graph, add selected to graph. So you can see them there both at the bottom. So actually I'm going to put the left one on the left hand side and the right on the right, so it's a bit, or what's left in the viewport, which is actually the right side of the character. And what we're going to do now is do the same. So I'm going to get the blend colour, get two of them, and two for the other side as well. And I'm not going to bother with the average nodes for this one because it's going to be so rare that this is going to be grabbed by anything else, but if you want, you can add that in there if you want it to be affected by multiple things. And I'm adding two in here, and then I'm going to take the tie controls, graph, add selected to graph, take the right one and the left one. We'll do the same, just quickly taking the translate, put it into the first one, colour 1, the same on this side, the translate into the colour 1. Select all three of these. I'll set the blender to 1, and all the attributes to 0. It's going to say set attribute is locked, so it's just saying we can't change these ones to 0 because we've already connected them up, but that's okay. I just want to set the colour 2s to 0, so actually I'm just going to double check it on these two. Set those colour 2s to 0, and again on these actually. Okay, so we've got them set in there, and then we can take the output of the translate blend colours into the input, into the translate, the same on the other side. So what that gives us, if the blend is set to 1, what this means is you can see now as I move this upper eye control, it's going to average the position between them two, which is what we want really for the majority of the animation, because we'd expect as this antenna moves up and down it to sort of keep the same distribution. If we had this down here, we can have a lot of compression and then a lot of stretch, so we just want that easy option to automatically keep it consistent all the way down. And then if we did want some sort of funky eye shape, let's set the blender to 0 so it's not following. I could now get that funky shape, so this could be grabbed by a different character, or it could be, you know, pinned down by something, and then his other eye, the top of the eye, can still move about freely without animating this as well. So we've got that freedom over there. And one thing I was doing here is select both these controls, go to Edit, Add Attribute, and I'm just going to go Follow Antenna. So follow. So this is going to follow the sort of the whole antenna. And again, minimum of 0, maximum of 1, default 0. Add. And because we selected both, we can see it's been added to both the left and both the right. Okay, so I'm going to add these into the graph as well. Graph, add selected to graph, and drag and drop onto the blend colours, and just get them follow attributes onto the blender. I'm going to reload left when we selected this curve, reload the new blend colour, and just put the follow back in there on both of these. Now we can see that we've got these rotates blend colours, but it seems a bit pointless because we haven't actually had any rotates in there, as you can see. So what I'm actually going to do is duplicate, I'll select both of these and hit Control D again. I'll just find them and I'll expand these two constraints and just delete them. And with these two selected, I'm just going to rotate them 90 degrees and scale them down a little bit. And I'm just going to hide the joints so it's a little bit easier to see. And we scaled and rotated that, so I'm going to freeze transformations. And basically what we want to do is, instead of rotating like we did with the chest control, we want to aim. So this control is always aiming at the top control. So as we move this about, select to the right, this is going to get into the mid position, and it's also going to aim up towards that control there. Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to do is actually just parent each one of these. So I'm going to rename them now. So right antenna, mid aim. Right antenna, aim. We'll call that O1. Another thing before we get rid of these or start doing anything with them, I'm going to just hit Control D, duplicate them. I'm going to show the local rotative axes of both these eye controls. Snap them to there. And I'm just going to move them up in Y. So I'll freeze transformations and move them up about 2, 3 even. And what we're going to do is, these are the aim controls, so these are going to aim up, and what they're going to be aiming at, well, they're going to be aiming at these controls really, but they're going to be taking these as the up vectors. So I'm going to just put aim up, up, O1, and O1. Okay, so I'm just going to pause the video tutorial here now because it's gone on for about 13 minutes or so, and when we come back we're just going to get these to basically follow the mid position, so follow these tie controls, and these are going to be constantly aimed up at these controls, and then we can do the same what we did before, input them to the rotations, so that way when we set the blender to follow, it's actually going to be following the mid tie control, and it's going to be aiming at the top control, so it's going to follow and aim. At the moment it's just following, so you can see we'd have to manually rotate that into position to get it to aim. So we're just going to get that rotation in there.